recorded live.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. Boo! Happy Halloween to everybody. This is the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the Black Science Fiction Society.com website. And this is our Halloween edition because it just happens to fall on that day. My name is William Hayashi. I'm your host. And tonight's special guest, I don't know. Yeah, you're special because you're actually the guest. Now, do you prefer James or J. Carroll or Mr. Jones?
It can be James. And then,
James is okay.
Yeah, and the pen name is J. Carell Jones.
Right. James Carell Jones, who is, let's read all this, an Army veteran. He's been in the customer service field for nearly 30 years, which means, seriously, if you don't know anything about customer service, that's about 6 lifetimes, isn't it, James?
That's about it, yeah.
Yeah. And where are you coming to us today?
Southern California, Los Angeles.
Yeah? How's the weather?
Well, we actually got a break. We're hot the last couple of days. It's been cloudy today. Mm-hmm. So it's comfortable. You can still do short sleeve.
That's not bad. Yeah, I just walked out to the store today. We may have snow tonight here in Chicago, it's very disappointing. But the thing is, this goes back to the kind of normal weather we usually had in Chicago, where the kids would be trick-or-treating and they would have, like their winter coats on and their snow pants, and then try to put, that inexpensive costume over their winter clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this would be a typical Chicago Halloween.
Okay.
Which isn't too bad. I really envy your weather. I mean, to be able to still think about shirt sleeves is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
So you're describe what you do now, because you've done everything from like voiceovers to graphic design. But what's your main interest right now?
It is publishing, writing and publishing.
Okay, so publishing as a publishing company of other people's content or just your own content?
Oh, both.
Okay.
I have 2 authors right now, Patricia I. Williams and Kenneth A. Strickland. 2 of their books. Hers is Beneath the Cat's Eye, sci-fi, and Ken's is Four Corners, another kind of sci-fi and kind of an alternate world, contemporary. We'll have 2 children books coming out soon, and hopefully some more books coming out at the beginning of the year.
Very cool. Now, what's the name of the publishing company itself? That's
Mythical Legends.
Mythical Legends, and for people who want to look up on the internet, it's mythicallegends.com, and that's with the double L. mythicallegends.com.
With the double L.
And when you see, there's a lot of content on there, so everybody take a little look. So, yeah, exactly. Drop in, set a spell, put your feet up. When people, tell you what, let's talk a little bit about how you got where you got.
Mm-hmm.
You publish your own stuff. What kinds of things, what kind of content is it that you work mostly on, or that you mostly put out?
Science fiction, some fantasy, action and adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of a guy who grew up in, I'm old, so I had my fair share of action films, T.J. Hooker, things like that. So I do a lot of action adventure, science fiction. I like the stuff that's a little bit quirky, more some military type of angle and things. What else? I have 7 books right now. One of them is an alternate history. I am very interested in alternate history. I love that.
Yeah, well, me too. Okay, so about how long have you been writing? Because we're going to start out talking about how you got where you got. How long have you been? When was your first? Let's say, when did you first publish?
Well, I first published in 1988. It was
Okay.
a book called Landfill, and it starred a female character. Her name is Karen Bouchard, UN agent. So I decided,
Okay.
I decided to give the UN kind of a spy organization. It didn't quite go so well, but again, that's my first attempt at publishing. Before that, back in the mid '80s, I actually used to do Star Trek fan fiction.
Okay.
And I'm sure everybody's familiar with the genre, the Star Trek fan fiction. At the time, I belonged to a Star Trek club. It was called the USS Shadow Star, and it belonged to an organization called Star Trek International. It was pretty big back then. Reached 10,000 members. It's shrank since then. We're probably down about 4,000 or 5,000. So I started out doing fan fiction. Felt comfortable with that, and decided that I was going to do, my own book. And I had this idea that I'm going to publish it, go down to the local bookstore, work out some kind of contract, and then people would buy it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so tempted to do the cynical. Yeah. So how'd that work out for you, brother?
I sold two,
Okay.
and it was through Baker and Taylor.
That's not bad.
It was actually it was easy then to get on with Baker and Taylor. Now you have to have a reseller's license.
Oh, sure.
But
they don't take commissions anymore. They used to take commissions.
They still do that, but then they require you to have a reseller's license.
Oh, okay, all right. If I were to be honest, I have a huge collection of Star Trek books. Mostly in the original series and the Next Generation, because a number of my favorite sci-fi writers wrote them, and I can't give you any names on them without getting up and walking around the corner. But I always thought about
Joe Trimble.
Well, yeah, and then Gerald, I don't know.
David Gerald.
Yeah, and I always thought, well, if I'm going to write a story, maybe I can write out something like that. And it wasn't out of any great innate, conviction that what I would do would be great. It was just like you said, like fan fiction. You love the genre, you love the characters. They're very familiar, and if you collect as many of these damn books that I did, they're a great Bible for how to write in that universe.
Right.
But I never got around to doing it. Now, your first book was not in that genre, but at least it kind of gave you the impetus to think about writing. I mean, how old were you when you first started thinking about telling stories?
Telling stories? Let's see.
I mean, telling like maybe writing or you know what I'm saying.
Well, for me in school, it really wasn't about the fiction. I was heavy into the science.
Okay.
So I always thought about the real world stuff as opposed to writing fiction. I didn't start thinking about fiction until I was 18. And then some years later, I hooked up with a friend, and she introduced me to the Star Trek Club. And so I get to the Star Trek Club, and the captain, the president of the club, Lee Burdine. He actually has a couple of books out now. If you guys want to check that out on Amazon, LEE space BIRDINE. Fantastic writer. I'm actually trying to get his books. I'm trying to publish his books. I'm waiting for him to communicate with me, but he's doing it on his own. So the thing for this particular club is he wrote the main story, the main storyline. We had our own ship called the USS Shadow Star. He had his character, Captain Chaos, Sandor Chaos. And we would develop our own characters. And he would write the stories, with our characters in, an ongoing adventure.
Right.
And then we have our little satellites. So which is where I started getting interested. I did my one little piece, and I thought, it was fun, tedious. I had some issues, but it was well received. And then I continued doing that until I started actually writing more kind of a feature length, the fanzine. Yeah, and then years later, I got out of the Starfleet, the organization, the Star Trek Club, doing my own thing. Kind of lost touch with some of the folks. Still stayed in touch with a few. And then again, I joined a Star Trek, a writers group called Trek Creative. So the Yahoo group, and these people, started writing. They write fiction. Very good writers. I don't know why these people don't publish on their own. I keep trying to convince them to do that.
Right.
As you said in the previous show, it's easy to write. It's hard to write well. And these people write well.
Well, I mean, you're a publisher, and when you have these people who are writing, when you see their fan fiction that they write, what's the length of what they write? Because perhaps you might be able to convince them to do an anthology.
One friend in particular, I think his the largest word count is about 90,000.
Okay.
For fan fiction. Again, his own little character, his world, his Trek world. But then, so as I'm in this club and I'm seeing all these people writing, and thinking, gosh, they can do their own stuff. Then I started thinking, geez, I can do my own stuff.
Right.
So I did the attempt to do landfill. Again, I was back in 1988, and I had stopped. And then when I joined this Trek Creative group, I started thinking about writing again, doing my own stuff. I had a couple of things on the side, kind of half finished. The Grid Traveler series. The first book was in 1994. It was 93. I finished it when I was in the military. I was just finishing Project Restore Hope, the Somalia thing. So I was stationed out in back east, doing the whole thing. So I finished the story, came back home, started doing a little, started thinking about it. And I said, oh, okay, let me attempt to do this again. And I hit a brick wall. It was the time wasn't right. The technology, the internet was just getting off the ground. If you wanted to be a publisher back then, you had to have some money. You actually have to see serious money, and you had to have stock. So once you created your book, you had to send it off to a printer. And once you got your books, then you had to actually hit the streets and go to the bookstores and try to convince them to carry your books. Well, I had a lot of stuff going on, and I said, well, I'll hold off for a bit. And then comes along Amazon, and I think that was everybody's savior. And, Amazon made it easy for anyone to publish a book. So I polished off the first book, finished the second one in the Grid Traveler trilogy, and then did the third one in 2013. So I published the first book, came out 2012, around there. And I'm all excited. I'm going, I got a couple of books up. So then I started writing the other books. And with me, I do a lot of things at once. I'm a multitasker, and occasionally I don't get anything done because I'm a multitasker. I have all these things open. And then at some point, everything coalesces, and boom, I have all this stuff out. And it looks like that I'm constantly pumping things out when it may take months to complete whatever I'm working on. And then it just, boom, I had like 5 things at once. And it took me 6 months to do that. So then I started,
When people look at that, though, they still think, it's an impressive body of work. And the fact is, not everybody finishes what they start. I've told the story about all these people, at least here in Chicago, that I've met, who haven't finished anything. And I ask them, they tell me because they know I'm a writer. Oh, I'm a writer too. I'm working on a book. I go, okay, well, what are you working on? And they tell me what it is, and I say, how long you've been working on it? And they go, well, about 6, 7, 8, 9, however many years, whatever their number is. And then I ask them, well, why haven't you finished? What's the threshold, holding you, or what's holding you back from finishing? And they go, well, I only write when it's so hard. I have kids, I have this, I have a job, I have all of these things. And it's really hard for me to write because I can only write when I'm rarely in the mood. And I'm going, well, okay, so you've got a hobby, and then they, because I honestly think if you're going to write and you're going to write commercially, then it's a job. And if you don't treat it like a job, if you don't treat it like a job, it's not going to get done. And as you said, I said, it's easy to write, it's not easy to write well. So that's the other thing, because some people tell me, I've had people come up and ask me to help them write their life story. I mean, and I'm dead serious, man. And I go, well, what makes your life so compelling, that you think that this is a good idea? And they go, well, I've had some interesting things happen to me in my life. And then, when I tell them, well, it's hard to believe because you're boring the hell out of me standing here bothering me. And then, for some reason they take that negatively and, they get upset with me. I don't know why. For some darn reason I can't. But to what you say, even though you're multitasking, I suspect you're like many writers, and a lot of stuff is going on in your subconscious even when you're not thinking about writing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, I was going to say, to answer the question about the person, who when they say I don't have enough time or I'm busy and busy and stuff, and I tell them half an hour is fine, even 10 minutes is fine, as long as you put some words down, and as long as you move forward in your writing. You don't have to sit down for hours and pump out about 10,000 words in that one sitting. There have been times I'll sit in front of the computer. And I got multiple screens. Again, this is where I have a lot of stuff going on. But I got multiple screens, and I'm sitting in front of the page, and there's words there, and I may be staring at that thing for 3-4 hours. Now, while I'm staring at this page for 3-4 hours, I decide, well, I'm going to probably render something. And again, I do the 3D content. So I'm rendering, and then I may be doing some research, which is one of the things I like to do. I like to do a lot of research. And then 10 or 20 minutes before I decide it's time to go to bed, then I start writing, and I'll write a sentence or two, and then I'll go to bed, and then I'll wake up, of course, in the middle of the night, like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and I'll add a couple more sentences, and then I'll go back to bed. But it's just forward. You have to go forward, momentum.
Well, and that pattern makes a lot of sense, because when you think about it, when I believe people are their most creative when their mind is not at rest or at peace, but at least able to calm down sufficiently enough to get in touch with whatever it is that drives their creativity.
Right.
So when you tell me, and when you tell me that's so, it makes perfect sense to me, because my most creative times, I mean, I when I'm in full-on writing mode, I start writing at 10 p.m. because nobody calls me. Or very few people will call me, and so the phone's not ringing. So, there's not a whole lot of stuff going on outside. People misbehaving in the street or whatever, and it is a time when I'm more at rest, more at peace. So I think that the creativity flows better during those times. So
and the words, what you're putting down will appear better. I mean, I'll actually read better.
Yeah.
Because, again, you're at your most creative.
Well, and I think if I were to be honest and tell one of my little tricks, my inner voice is clearer in the middle of the night because it's not distracted. So if I have to write, and, my books are a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of dialogue in my books because eventually I want them all to be made into movies.
Right.
But, it's hard to write dialogue if you can't listen to your own inner voice and really be clear about what's making sense. Does this sound like this is how people talk? And when I first started writing, I don't know if this was hard for you, but I had to learn how to write dialogue, because dialogue is not how we speak, at least not written dialogue. If we wrote exactly how we spoke, it's unreadable. Like a transcript of your and my phone call, people could follow along reading it, but it would in no way read back in their heads the way you and I are speaking. So that was a tough thing for me to learn. It took me a while to learn that. So I think I understand your creative process, and I think that, I mean, it certainly sounds like it works for you.
It works for me.
Yeah. Do you find it easy to? I mean, once you've got a story going, even though regardless of the multitasking and all of that, is it generally pretty easy to move it along, or do you have to, because you're starting and stopping, the starting and stopping is actually part of your creative process?
In between the starts and stops, I'm still thinking about the story. And,
right.
And one of the things I used to do in the past, I would walk with my friend Patricia Williams, and we live maybe 2 blocks from the Forum. The Forum, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, where the Lakers used to play.
Right.
Okay, so we're about 2 blocks from that, and we can walk around it. So we would walk, like maybe I guess when I got home from work and stuff, and then I would talk about the story where I was, and throw some ideas out. And when I get home, I already have the story kind of fresh, and again, I'm still doing that start and stopping. So when I change jobs and we can no longer do the walks, when I take my lunch, I walk to the spot where I'm going to eat, and I walk back. And while I'm walking, I'm thinking about the next thing I'm going to do. Okay, I have the characters in this situation. There's some dialogue going on. What should happen? And I'll replay a particular scene over and over again. I may even actually let them talk. And if I don't like what they're saying, I may say, "Wait a minute, guys. Let's take this a little different. I don't want to go in that direction." And sometimes they listen to me, sometimes they don't. But then I'm very persuasive about kind of guiding where I want the story to go.
Sure.
But then I continue to do that, and then when I get home, doing a session at 11 o'clock at night or so, it's like, oh, okay, I've already had the scene in my head. All I have to do is just write it out. And since I've been doing the dialogue over and over again in my head, and also seeing how I'm going to write the scene, it flows a little easier, which is why I'm able to do the sentence and the 2 sentences when I finally do it. Because I may still be thinking about that scene, staring at this computer screen for 3 hours, because I'm still thinking about what's going on with the characters. And
yeah, the process goes on, even when you're not sitting right in front of your computer to do it. Let's go back a little bit. Where did you grow up?
Los Angeles.
Yeah, so you've been there all your life. Did you go other than, serving, did you live elsewhere, or have you mostly been?
Mostly L.A. I mean, certain, L.A. County. Lived in Burbank. L.A. is a very large city. L.A. County is huge.
Growing up there, as a kid, it sounds like your creative bent, at least for writing, came a little bit later. Did you have an inkling of that? Was there anything like that, when you were starting out in school? Maybe, late elementary school, high school.
Well, interesting thing about that one. My mom tells me that I was a troublemaker. Yeah, she's mentioned that.
Didn't know? You didn't know you were a troublemaker? You're going to claim ignorance of that? Okay,
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Massive amounts of alcohol kills brain cells.
Yes.
So the things I can't remember. That's what they say.
Okay.
So, and her little nickname for me was her Angel.
All right. That's like calling that big-ass guy in your high school class. That's why they called him Tiny.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so I was her angel devil. So the thing is, going through elementary school, I think I went through 2 schools, settled in Hillcrest Elementary School. And the thing was, I always sat in the back of the class, and I couldn't see the board. I needed glasses, and no one knew that. I needed glasses. So then, of course, I'm bored. So I'm talking to the kids, next to me, my right, left, and I'm messing them up. And of course, the teacher's getting upset. Go to the vice principal's office, get my little paddle, because back then teachers and principals could swat a kid. And it took years before everyone figured out that I actually needed glasses. And because of that, I kind of fell behind. I'm dyslexic. So I'm hit with double whammy. So by the time I get my glasses, it's 5th grade, 6th grade. But one of the thing that helped me is, and they say this about people who are dyslexic, you have a fairly high IQ, and it compensates for the deficiency. So I was able to follow along listening to the teacher, and since I could see up close, and I had the book, I would read the book while the teacher was lecturing. So I was still able to keep up, with my studies, but I still had issues with writing in English, and that's still a challenge for me, the English language.
Okay. So, given the dyslexia, is it fair to say that probably kept you from getting into being a writer, during your early time when you were undergoing, your adjustment to the condition and trying to chart your way through it? Did you do any creative writing that early, or did that come to you later?
That came later, but I did a lot of thinking, and I watched a lot of television. I sat down today and I wrote out all the TV shows that I can remember, and I'm up to, I think, 90 TV shows. And a lot of them were, fun shows, a lot of science fiction in there. I really didn't get into science fiction until I was 10 years old.
Okay.
That's the story on that one. But for me,
what were some of your favorite shows? I mean, that early, what were some of your favorite shows?
Oh, well, besides the cartoons on the weekends, there was Scooby-Doo, the Justice League. There's Thundar, the Barbarian. I don't know if you guys remember that. Thundar was great because people died. People actually died.
Okay.
And then the first season of G.I. Joe, people died. When the airplane was hit with a missile, it blew up and there was no parachute.
Right.
And then later on, they had robots fly the planes. The Munsters, Gilligan's Island, Lone Ranger, the Wacky Races.
Kind of like all of the 60s and 70s fare.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is we're probably the last generation. I know you're probably a little older than me.
Yeah, I'm 85.
Oh, yeah, that's what you say. You were born in 1929?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, okay. So, but we're the last generation that would have seen TV shows and movies that our parents and grandparents have seen.
Right.
And those stuff was very creative. I mean, they were, some of the stuff like the Little Rascals and Three Stooges. They had fun when they were making these movies, and of course there wasn't a special effects budget, so they're creative with how they told the story.
Sure.
Particularly The Thing, the original Thing, black and white. There was no gore, but it was very suspenseful. And you had Alfred Hitchcock and how he told his stories.
Yeah. For me, it was The Outer Limits. I just thought of one that I hadn't thought of for a long time. Land of the Giants.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah. I did.
All of those shows that we grew up with that were just, Time Tunnel, the whole black and white genre. Well, it was black and white in my house because that's the only kind of TV we had. I didn't have a color TV till I went to college. And I bought that with my first financial aid check. I will tell you right now that was a mistake. but all of those shows for me, they were all those sci-fi shows, and then the comedies. It's About Time. So
Jack Benny.
I think it was probably one of the most creative times in television because of the excitement of being able to produce something and get it out to the public. The ideas were not so fettered, and I also have to believe that the television executives back then were as excited as the viewers, and they were not nearly so risk averse. So we got to see a lot of things that today could never ever be on television.
Yeah. Well, they a lot of actors suffered because of that. George Reeves, Superman. Once he broke away from that, and he did it was a Civil War, cavalry soldier, and there's a scene where I guess he's wounded and he's in some ditch, and the executives thought, no, that's Superman, he's wounded, take it out. So that part never made that movie.
Oh, no. I agree with you in that respect, but they didn't have special effects back then to speak of. Look at the original Superman television show, how they managed to do all that. Putting a stepladder outside of our view just so that he can look like he landed. And then the idea for the time tunnel, all of these things. I think we grew up in a very, very lucky period of creativity for television.
All we did was less distraction. You either had TV or books or playtime, a lot of playtime, but a lot of television. I remember finally New Year's, because back then you can be a latchkey kid and nobody would get in trouble. So my mom go to some New Year's Eve party, and I'd be home in bed, snuggled up, and I turn the TV on, and there's Flash Gordon.
Yes.
Buster Crab. I mean, I love that. I love that series.
Yeah.
I mean, I still look at it every now and then. I'll say, I want to look at some Flash Gordon or Forbidden Planet. I mean, I love Forbidden Planet. I highly recommend to everybody. If you hadn't seen it, and good story. There's a lot of good stuff there. But yeah, there was a creativity. You get to they did. You're right. They tried a lot of things. A lot of stuff didn't pan out. Especially you had the B movies. A lot of the B movies, a lot of the B science fiction movies in the 40s and the 50s. I mean, some of them were just absolutely horrible, but they're just fun to watch.
About I would have to say maybe about 4 or 5, maybe 5 years ago, I was at a what was that store just called? Oh, Borders, and there was a 60 movie pack of those B sci-fi movies, and I picked that up for like $9.95, and I got the Godzillas, the Mothras, the Black Lagoons,
jackpot.
All of that stuff. Yeah, for $10, because people, nowadays everybody's looking at destruction porn and watching, special effects, and a lot of people can't sit through what you and I, saw as regular Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and Saturday night entertainment.
Right, and then back then there was always a good guy and a bad guy, or there was clear-cut, elements in the story. It wasn't this murkiness, and how they. I hate it when they started doing the reboots. Some of the reboots I actually like, but when they started changing things, like Mission Impossible, good example on that one. Mr. Phelps would never, betray his team,
or be so cavalier with life.
Absolutely. So, but good back then, good guys, bad guys, you had your story.
Yeah. Now, do you think any of that influenced how you write today, the way you formulate your stories?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Now there's some characters that they're good guys. They're anti one book in particular, Blessed Lands, Egypt. He's the protagonist. No. Let me back up. He's actually an anti-hero.
Okay.
He is the anti-hero. At least he would have been if he was allowed to progress naturally. There was a bit of changing in him, and he may be a different person. He's more humble. If you look at one of the posters, I probably should post a couple of links to that. But it says, "What would you do if you could be a god?"
Yeah. Are they on your website, by the way?
Yes, they are.
Posters, because I'm looking at.
If you go to services,
mostly books covers. Yeah.
If you go to services, scroll down a bit, you'll actually see.
Okay.
See some
and for people who are looking, or people who want to see, who are not logged into the chat room right now, it's mythicallegends.com. No www necessary, just mythicallegends.com, and you can take a look at James's work.
And I do my own covers. I do my own artwork.
You just said that because you heard me in other shows talk about how I can't draw a hand with all 5 fingers. I can only fit about 3 in there. But that's fine,
I'm not an artist. I'm actually not an artist. I can do some cute cartoons, but I can't do figure drawings. I can do some of the basic stuff, but I will admit I am not an artist. But I do have tools that allow me to create things that I like. And one is isn't that the essence of it? I mean, you may not be able to do everything perfectly, but if you know where to go to get it done,
I think that's part of not only the creative process, but it shows a certain amount of maturation, because what you're doing is you're doing for yourself, and you've gone and researched, the skills necessary and researched the tools necessary to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Probably saves you some money too.
Oh, absolutely. It does save me money. Instead of spending $150, $300, $600 for a cover, I just have to put in some time. Now, I do have to pay for the software. I belong to Creative Space, Adobe's membership thing, subscription thing, and for $50 a month. Now I'm paying $50. I was paying $30 as a special deal, but for $50 a month, I have access to all the Adobe software, Photoshop, Lightroom. If I can take a photograph and then put it in Lightroom and then do some filtering. It's just fantastic. InDesign, Illustrator. So so the resources are there, and it may cost a little bit of money, a little bit of time, but I've probably saved thousands of dollars by doing my own artwork.
So let's kind of get back to the early leanings of doing your own creative universe. How did that come about?
Well, that came about because of Star Trek. The Star Trek.
Okay.
Or Star Trek. I was 10 years old. Well, so the Star Trek Club, and I got to see people who wrote stories. Now, not all the clubs or the ships back then, that's what they call them. They still call them ships. Were story oriented. Some of them were role playing, which is another thing I got into. The generic universal role playing GURPS. And pretty much all about the same time. So there's a Star Trek, seeing these people being very creative in writing, and then being caught up in this saying, gee, I want to do some stuff. I want to write my own stories. I want to create a world, which is why I created Grid Traveler. It's not a Star Trek world. It's a blending. It's Star Trek, Star Wars, Firefly, kind of, universe.
It has a lot of different elements.
It has a lot of elements.
Yeah.
And then doing the universal role playing, and having, again, my friends, and we're being very we're very creative, and then GMing or game mastering some games. Then I started honing my skill on telling a story, for one, or having a story, beginning, middle, and end. The ability to actually create the story as it's unfolding, and shaping the direction where I want the story to go to my ending.
Sure.
Which is one this might seem a little odd, but I actually write my ending first in a lot of my stories.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay. And then I do the beginning, of course. And some of the books I actually would scene jump. I just do different scenes, and then I'd write to catch up to the scenes.
I see. Okay. So you're kind of in this club, and it does. Obviously, it fostered your creative juices. Did you have other people's work to kind of inspire you, or did you already have kind of like a well-defined universe in your head that you were going to be bringing to the forefront? What actually triggered it? It was your own creativity?
Yeah. Again, in all the movies and TV shows. Now, I do have favorite authors, of course, and I really didn't start reading until 18. It was one day we had. I was going through basic training, and in this case, I was going through my advanced individual, my AIT training, advanced individual training, and we had Sunday off. So I'm just walking. I know I didn't have any money because you didn't get paid a lot back then, and I was walking, and I just happened to go into, I find this bookstore, and I'm looking at it. I'm going, this might be an interesting book. It was Dune. So I find myself in one of the empty barracks, and I get in there. I'm sitting down, and I'm reading, and it's getting kind of dark. So I'm halfway through it, and I'm thinking, am I going to finish this thing or not? So I said, no, I may not finish it. I like it, but I'm not going to finish it. So I left the book there for the next person to come along and and pick it up.
Sure.
But then, and then a few years later, I always thought about that. So then when I got a little bit of money, started making money, I went back and I found Dune. Completed the thing. Loved it. Got all the six books of that series. Read the whole thing. I did the same thing with Heinlein. Love Robert Heinlein.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
some people, I've read just about everything. There's only two books I hadn't read from him. I even read his Pet Cave of Mars. C.J. Cherry. I love her world building. The Foreigner series. You have the Foreigner series. You have the Scientine series. You have the Below Station, series. I mean, she just creates these worlds. It was probably C.J. Cherry, the one that got me thinking about world building.
Okay.
Because it was so effortless. It seemed so effortless for her to do it, and how she created a world. She wasn't very technical. I mean, there wasn't a lot of technical stuff in there, but she concentrated on the people and the culture.
Yeah, it was character driven.
It's character driven.
Yeah.
Very much character driven. And I've read some of the hardcore hardcore military science fiction books. But again, I love the character driven stuff. Asimov is pretty good, even though he's pretty technical. He does have some good characters.
What was cool about Asimov was, as he got closer to the end of his life, he brilliantly converged the Robot and the Foundation series.
Oh yeah, the Robots are gone.
Yeah, it was just brilliant. And these guys who write these multiple volume universes are a huge influence on me. My first writing is going to be 7 books in a series, and I know that's ambitious, but there's an appeal to that, because I loved picking up a new Heinlein book, and there's 1 or 2 characters from this other book, and you get to see them in a new context, and that's not only that, I mean, that's pretty satisfying as a reader.
Yeah, you read the Number of the Beast.
Absolutely.
Oh, 7 times for me. But it's great how he mixed in all these different worlds, all these different books,
all
books
these
of other
previous
people,
worlds. Exactly.
All these previous worlds.
Yes.
In one book, it was phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's the kind of world building that I wanted to engage in, and it was very instrumental in me finally sitting down and writing. I didn't expect to finish my first book, because I didn't think I was going to ever get it done. But yeah, that was, your influences were very, very similar to mine, probably the exact same. I started reading a lot earlier than you, though. My dad had subscription to Astounding Stories and Analog. My dad had Analog come in every month, and as soon as I saw it in the mail, because I got home before him, eventually I started grabbing it and reading it first. And that's way back when. And then what my parents did? My parents were slick, and I'm not angry with them, but they were really slick. They put all the reference books, the science books, all that stuff right outside the bathroom. So
the reading room.
When you're on your way into the library, you just grab a book. So I got interested in, the basis for time and all of that. So all of that stuff kind of fed an imagination, because we were also kids of the space program, the early part of the space program, when I think it was most exciting. Did that influence you at all?
It did in that I wanted to be an astronaut.
Okay.
So then, I go to the library. My mom used to, at that time, she worked for the LA City Library. So I got a chance to, to get books, the bookmobile. I get my little books and stuff. One good thing about her working in the library is, in certain, office get-togethers, I was able to go into the back, the books that people don't see. And there was a lot of science.
Private section or something.
Oh well, it's the downtown library. It's, even then it was big. It was you had a million or so volumes of books, and they were they rotate them every now and then. But there were books that probably hadn't been seen for a while, and a lot of them were science. Well, the section I was interested in, so then I can look at a book, read it. I was still having issues with some of the words, but I can understand what it was actually saying. And they had wonderful pictures, Men in the Moon. First Men to the Moon. It was probably written in the 1960s. No, the 1950s, early 60s, and it was about America's first space program. It was a space plane that went to the moon. And as when the good thing about the wonderful thing about this book is not only did it talk about the science behind that, it actually had a story about the two astronauts in that. And then what happens with one of them got sick, and it was just wonderful. So one chapter is the story, the next chapter is the technology, and the next chapter is the story, and it goes back and forth, back and forth. So
now that's pretty cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking of I have a project that I'm working on that's something like that.
Analog Magazine is like that too, because they have their science and math articles mixed in with the fictional content too.
Yeah,
so you're reading this as a high school kid or younger?
Younger. I'm reading technical books, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
It was because I could. Go to the library, go to the books.
Sure. Sure.
And it was just wonderful. In high school, I was taking the way they had it in my school is you did biology, chemistry, and then physics. You did physics in your senior year. Well, I did physics first. And I did it backwards. Well, up to a point, I have to admit, I am a high school dropout.
Were you like a nerdy little guy in school? And I don't mean that,
No, I was straight A.
In disrespect. Yeah.
No, I was a straight A student. Elementary school, was okay. I was kind of a little chubby. And so my mom helped me lose weight, which was good. The good thing about that, I like her about that, is she took up jogging. So we would jog together.
Okay.
She never jogged before. So we jogged, and I lost all this weight, and so I became athletic. So when I got to junior high school, again, I'm starting to become a little more athletic. I'm liking the track and stuff, and I told myself, I'm smart, because I have my glasses, and I'm still reading all the technical stuff, and I had an opportunity to be bussed out because I was, in the inner city, and at the time they had a program called PWT, Permit with Transportation. So I was being bussed out to the valley, the good schools. We had the good teachers and the good books. I mean, the teachers were good where I am, but they didn't have the resources and material.
Sure.
So here I am in junior high at the school, which later became a magnet school. So I'm doing something that I told myself, all right, when I get to high school, I'm going to be popular. Screw this smart guy stuff, this nerdy stuff. And my mom actually does tell me there are times where I actually downplayed my intelligence because a lot of the kids around me, they weren't into reading, they weren't into television. They didn't even do comic books. They're just about playing. But that, kids play.
Yeah.
But and again, I was a straight A student. Hold on, I'm actually at work.
You're at work right now?
And everybody's gone. So let's see. Who was at the door? I think I'm gonna.
Yeah, if you get shot or something, if you get shot or something, stay on the line and I'll call. No, I'll call.
That's probably the cleaning crew. So straight A student, going to do junior high. I get to high school, so I took track and field, marching band, concert band, jazz band. I'm doing all this stuff, trying to get into the science. I'm taking these hard classes, and then I find the one. I find lust. That's the reason why I dropped out.
You find what?
Sex.
Oh, I thought you said lust. Yeah.
Yeah, lust. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I wind up running away from home. At about 17, we went down to Tijuana, eloped, got married.
Okay.
So then I come back, and I still had this love of the technology and the thing. Actually, I think I just rambled away from our topic. Guide me back.
Well, no, I mean it's okay. I mean, here's the thing. When I interview somebody, it is my belief that we all know that there's certain things that we all have to do as writers. There's certain things we all have to do as animators. There's certain things. I mean, there's certain things that are not that are imponderables because we all know that how they have to be done. but what makes somebody what they are, what brings them to the creation of their art, and what it is for them that sustains them. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know anybody, I'm sure it's happened. J.K. Rowling was living in her car. Nobody jumps out, or it so seldom happens that somebody all of a sudden comes out, a best-selling author out of whole cloth. But, people, I'm always interested in how people got where they are, what the journey was like. So, if there's something about your life that is remarkable, think about it. How many people who are listening now and who will pick this up as a podcast ran away from home? The percentage is probably not going to be that high, given the kind of people who are interested in this kind of show. But, when you think about that, you're 17 years old, you run off to Mexico, of all places?
Yeah, we get married, we come back, we settle in to a place called, we settle in Burbank.
Right.
Broke off all communications with my mom. We didn't talk to each other for about 2 years. During that first year of our marriage, it was actually an annulment divorce, but during that first year, we're at a drive-in, and we're looking at stripes. And I'm thinking, I said, I'm 17. I don't have a high school diploma. I actually did have. I took that California high school proficiency exam. I walk into the adult class, say I want to get my diploma. So this guy hands me several books, and I read it. I'm looking at it, and I said, well, when can I take the test? He says, well, once you finish the books and you feel comfortable, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks for people. I said, okay. So I sat down, looked at the books, took the test at the back of the book, and a half an hour later I walked up to the guy and I said, okay, I'm ready for my test. I took the test, and he said, you passed. So I got my diploma, in one evening.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah. So I'm looking at stripes.
Wait, no. Let's back. Yeah, please. That's what I wanted to hear. You're watching, and Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Talks you into going into the Army.
Oh yeah. Because I tried for the Air National Guards.
Right.
And I went for the physical. I wanted to be, an engineer. One of the best things my mom did. Another great thing my mom did is she bought me this little table, this little workbench table. It's maybe 4 feet by 4 or something like that. And at the time I can put it in my closet. The closet was deep enough for that. And I set up all sorts of stuff. I had electronic boards. I buy stuff at Radio Shack and taught myself how to, to read the color codes. And I'm building these things. Sure. And then for was it 4th grade, I went ahead and I built myself a phaser. The Space 1999 gun, gun. Sure. I made out of balsa wood and stuff. So, I'm glad she did that. So there's the Air National Guard. They flunked me out because I had high blood pressure. I always had it, all my life. Right. So I'm looking at stripes, and I'm going, man, I wish I can do that. So one of the other individuals that was with us at the time, he said, well, try the Army. They'll take anybody. So I said, okay. I find myself a recruiter. I go down there, signs me up. I take the ASVAB test, and the guy says, you can pick anything you want. You scored that high. So I said, cool. But since I was married at the time, she didn't want to be married to a full-time Army, active duty person, because she heard stories about they drink and they beat the wives. So I said, okay, I'll do reserve, but I can get myself a career now. I can actually learn something. So I'm sitting and
on somebody else's dime.
And on somebody else's dime. So there I am, going through the physical. They take my blood pressure, and I'm thinking, oh God, and it was high. And the guy said, well, I'm going to have you, relax a little bit. Go in this room, lay down on the table, and rest. So I do that. He comes back 15 minutes later, and the blood pressure's lower. And he's saying, well, it's still kind of high. And I said, well, I was talking to my wife, and he said, what? You're married? And I said, yeah. And he said, oh, no wonder. Pass.
Oh, see, that's cold. All right, you're probably going to get some people saying some things to you about that particular part of your life story.
It's true. Honest to God, he said that.
And were you 17 or 18 by then?
I was still 17, but because I was married, and when we went to Tijuana. She was married before at the age of 14, 15, and got a divorce. It was one of her teachers. Bad situation, but she was an emancipated minor. So then when we go down to Tijuana and we're in front of the
magistrate.
Yeah, the magistrate. Yeah. She hands the paperwork, and emancipated minor. So I don't have any paperwork, and I said, well, I'm one too. And they say, okay. I guess they wanted the money. Sign the paperwork. We get married, and because I was married, and because I had taken the California High School Proficiency exam, which, by the way, the year after that, they wouldn't accept it. So because I had that diploma, and I was married, I can sign for myself. So I got into the Army. Skin of my teeth. And which I took computers. I became a computer operator, and I wound up doing computer programming, system analysis, and things like that. And that was my career for about 10 years. With Somalia being the last thing. I actually had to get out because I couldn't go to school. Every time I go to school again, I'm looking at becoming an anthropologist, social scientist. I went to Cal State Dominguez Hills for a bit. I'm taking their advanced classes in sociology. The teacher was, surprised. I'm still getting straight A's and things. So, but every time I was trying to advance, I couldn't. The Army was holding me back because, again, they needed someone to work the computers, which it was an IBM 4341.
I remember those, yeah.
Yeah. Our unit had two of them, and I wanted to becoming the active guard reservist, AGR. And that was my domain, and I trained the operators and the programmers on how to operate the system. I taught myself Roscoe, the operating system, in JCL, Job Control Language. The manuals were there, and I also used to just reading. So I did all that. But again, I wanted to become an anthropologist. So I got to get out of the Army, and I said, that's it. They signed me out. And at the time, I'm also working at the post office, doing 40 hours. And I was sick of it. I call it the post awful. So there I am working at the post office. And I said, I got to get out of this place. I got to get, I'm done with the post office. So I enrolled in Santa Monica College. And I kid you not, 45 hours for working at the post office, and I was a full-time student. I wanted to get away from the post office so bad, and I wound up graduating with liberal arts, and that's another thing.
Hang on a second. Yeah, you're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the Black Science Fiction Society.com website. And this is the October 31st, 2014 edition, our Halloween show. Although the only really frightening thing is the fact that I may be facing snow tonight. I think that's about the only really frightening thing. You seem really reasonable. I'm nuts. And we're talking to, James Jones, or James Carell Jones. His website, if you want to take a look at his work, is mythicallegends.com. No www, just mythicallegends.com. And he's a writer and a 3D content creator. All right, so you get out of – how long were you at the post office, by the way?
7 years.
Yeah, see, and that was the period in our U.S. history when the term going postal was invented.
Yeah, that was about it. There was one day – I was so upset with the supervisor. You see, they were called 204Bs back then, the assistant supervisor. And I was practicing with wooden katana swords, just playing around with it. And I had some in my car, and he pissed me off so much. And I was just thinking, I'm going to go to my car. I'm going to take two of them out, toss one at him, and then tell him to prepare as I attack. So once I get out of the post office, I get my degree. I get out of the post office, and I work for Earthlink. Also during this time about the post office and the school and stuff, they're my friends, the Star Trek Club.
Yeah.
And then there's this writing. So I'm having all this stuff, and then on the weekends we do our GURPS, or the generic universal role playing games, and we come up with all this exciting stuff. We create our own stories. So I'm still in the creative mode process. You're still moving forward. I already attempted landfill at that time. That didn't work out. So I'm still moving forward. and then I had the kernels of Grid Traveler, the Grid Traveler series. I'm still thinking about that. But now I'm working at Earthlink, and I'm doing some heavy hours, different hours. I work my way up to supervisor. This is the time where Earthlink was just exploding. In 1 year, I went from being on the phones to being a supervisor. And then a few months after that, they created the live chat department. Well, they asked me to. I went over and I was the one who created the live chat department. I grew it, from 0 up to 130 people, about a dozen supervisors, lots of assistants. So it was good. And then that's when they did the layoff. They laid everybody off. Well, in our department. So I'm still having fun with my friends. I have to find a new job. They laid us off. Some friends and I, we decided that we're going to become X-ray technicians.
Okay.
So we go to.
No, go ahead, please. No, that's
okay.
Well, no, it's hilarious, and there's so much synchronicity here. When I was like 16 years old here in town, I was working at a hospital. I was a transporter, but being a hospital employee, they let you go through various training programs. And I went through the X-ray training program.
Oh,
now I was too young. I was too young to be a tech, but I mean that's why I laughed because of the similarity in the experiences you and I had.
So I become an X-ray technician. I work in a doctor's office, and I hope I hope I don't offend any medical doctors here, but doctors are cheap. They really are cheap. They have to, because it takes so long to get paid. So I was an X-ray technician for about 3 years. I did my internship for 4 months with no pay. That was brutal. So and while I'm doing the X-ray thing, I'm still writing. I'm actually working, on my little stuff. And after 3 years of that, I said, okay, I'm done with that. And a friend calls me up and says, hey, there's this job at where I'm working at. It's called Global Touch Telecom. They were doing long distance plans as well as VoIP. VoIP is starting to become very popular. So I interview. They hire me. I was doing the provisioning department, shipping, and technical support. So I'm working my way up, getting a little bit of raises. This was, what year was this? 2000, going in 2006. So 2006, 2007. Again, I'm doing the writing, and then I get laid off again. And by that time, I got married. My wife is Filipino. My daughter is, I don't know. I sent Jarvis a picture of that one. It has a picture of my daughter, but really, she's very smart too.
Is that the one on your web? Don't you have one on your website too?
Do I have that picture?
Well, you got somebody in a stroller.
Yeah, that's my daughter.
Yeah,
love of my life. That's my daughter. She means everything to me. So here I am with first no job, and then I take this one job. This guy says, I'll hire you, and it was kind of hinky, slightly illegal kind of thing. I got so upset after about 8 months that I told him I was going out to lunch, and I never came back.
Okay.
I actually sent them an email, spam the group that, it was just terrible. So then I stayed home and became a.
I'm sorry. Was it working in porn?
No. But I can tell you. Well, while we were going to X-ray technician, thinking before that, I had a job at the National Telephone Service. These are the people who handle the 900 adult entertainment by phone. I worked the customer service and collections. So there I'm working late at night, midnight. Of course, these people call in, and they would want to, of course, talk to an entertainer, and then they're interrupted by someone like me asking for their address, for the credit card information.
Numbers.
Yeah. So they're upset, and then, of course, once I get to my spiel, I send them on the way.
So the answer to my question was yes.
Yeah, some form or another. I worked in the industry, not as a porn.
No, not as a, you weren't, yeah, it's not like your name was, Richard Long.
No, but
or
some
something
of the,
like that.
You'd be surprised. Some of the male stars did call in.
Yeah.
For a reason.
None of my business. I figure none of my business. I mean, yeah, okay. I get called on to, I'm in the IT field, and one of the biggest, I think the most money I make per hour is cleaning up people's laptops that have to be returned to their IT department. Okay.
Mhm.
And you know what that is?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so they go, well, I said, well, I had to clean off blah blah blah. Blah. Yeah, my kids are on my laptop all the time.
Yeah, right.
And I said,
well,
I don't care.
In a way, right. His kids are on there.
Well, ouch. So anyway, I don't care. And a lot of people get all wigged out about computer porn, but you know what? If it wasn't for the adult industry, the internet wouldn't exist. It just wouldn't exist, because that's what drove it in 1991 and 1992, when America found out that there was free adult content. People, that really drove the growth. And it's funny because
absolutely.
The business growth model was identical to the same in growth to the same to VCRs in 1976. And again, both of those were driven by adult content. In America, sex sells. Sex is very important to people for entertainment, especially in the Bible Belt. So the fact that okay, so you're taking payments, no big deal. But I mean, how long did that last? Is that the one that you walked out of? The job you walked out of?
No.
Okay.
No, that one lasted eight months. 'Cause I was working as an X-ray technician and then doing that job. At the graveyard. So
sure.
I was only averaging about 4 hours of sleep, and then it got to 2 hours of sleep. On average I sleep about 5 hours. I mean, I can do that, and I said, well, but in this case it was eating into 2 hours, and I was I was getting late. I was late almost every day, and writing was on the wall. And I said, well, no, I got to stop that job. It was easy money, literally easy money, because there was a period of time where nobody was calling in, and then we can take little naps. So I had to quit that job, did the X-ray thing, go over to get myself over to Earthlink, work the live chat, get laid off there, Global Touch, get laid off, stay-home dad. I raised my daughter for almost 7 months, because the little missus was a live-in. She was a live-in help, live-in housekeeper, and so we see her on the weekend. So there I am, with a baby 24/7, pretty much. And then I get called back from the company that laid me off, Global Touch. They had changed the name to XCast Labs, which is who I'm working for now. And so they brought me in as a technical support manager. So I'm still working in the industry doing VoIP. Helping people so they can make calls.
Sure, but we all are. I mean, very few of us are living off of our dream job, our dream vocation. If I were making enough as an author to be able to pay my bills and have a vacation every now and then, of course that's what I would be doing, and that is my dream job. But it takes time. There's definitely a component of luck, to try to get the right person to see your stuff. And that's a question that I've got for you. When you have a certain amount of content out there, what do you hear from your fans or from people who check your work out? I mean, do you get much feedback directly from the people who read your work and see the kind of visual arts that you do?
Very little, and it goes. I'm on Goodreads. The people that read the stuff, but they don't really say anything. There are a few people who do reviews, who've done a few reviews. There's one review from Sandy, and I like Sandy. She gave it 3 stars, and for Goodreads, that's very good. And
right.
she said that she loved the characters, and she loved how I built the characters in, and that my captain was very loyal to his crew. So she loved that. She really wasn't into that kind of science fiction thing. She's more into the slash, the MM, the paranormal romance, and the males. So that's mainly her thing. But for her to read the science fiction and give me 3 stars, that was good. So I got some feedback off of that. Another person read My Blessed Land, Egypt. They gave it 4 stars. They said it didn't bore them, but they thought the world was believable. It was believable enough for them to continue turning page after page after page, until they finished it. You know, some people, you start a book and you go, and you put it down. Or you give it a mercy read until you actually get to the good spots.
Never heard of it put that way, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. There are a few books I can say I've given mercy reads and so disappointed. And some of them picked up later. Yeah. But feedback, don't get a lot, and that's the thing. But I still go forward because I write for myself. You really gotta write for yourself. And I always tell authors this and people this, that you have to be honest with yourself as an author. And one of the things to be honest is, can you read your story, your novel, at least 5 times and still like it after you read it 5 times? Right. If you can do that, then you got a good story. And it's a compelling story because you enjoyed it after reading the thing 5 times. If after the second reading and you say, no, screw this, I'm going to let my editor look at it, you don't have a good story. And you're not honest.
Well, but you know what? Reading is a dying art, dude, even among authors. Okay, there are fewer and fewer people who read books anyway, read novels. But, and if we talk demographics, black men, they predominantly read nonfiction. Okay? Black women read a lot more fiction. I have more women reading my books than men, which it just completely blows my mind. I mean, because it's unexpected. Not that there's anything wrong with any, fill in the blank here, reading what I write, but it was just unexpected. And then, I saw some comments, I think it was last week, online where somebody was saying, if you want to write a good story and you want women to read it, there should be a love story in it. There should be, some characters in there that are compelling to want to read. So, I try to take those things into account, especially like you, when you read the reviews. If you're a good, honest author, you have to take those seriously because essentially that's what someone, and yes, they are a critic, that's what somebody thinks of your work. So, yeah. I mean, when you read those sorts of things about your work, they're positive, but you seem to kind of hang back with a caveat in your mind. I mean, do you have a reservation about when people comment, or are you all in on what they say? I guess what I'm asking is, what's your take from the feedback you get like that?
Well, I read what the reviewer put down, and I try and get information. Well, the Sandy, good example on Sandy. She mentioned that it was a lot like Star Trek. And I'm thinking, well, Star Trek is so ubiquitous, in our society, is any book that says captain or hard to port, or when you start saying military commands, people immediately think Star Wars. I mean, not Star Wars, Star Trek. So I thought, okay, she can keep that one, because clearly the book is not it's not a Star Trek book, but because she made that comment, again, any book she read, that if it had kind of military action, battle scenes that were similar to Star Trek, because all battles are about the same, they have the same type of flow, she would have said, oh, it's like Star Trek. Yeah. So I dismissed that one, didn't get upset. I said, okay, well, I see what you do read of science is narrow. So I moved on, but then there are other stuff. It's like, okay, there were some good things, but I do look at reviews, with a grain of salt. I think about the motive of the person, and there are some people who really, really honest, and they just want to speak their minds. And of course, there are some people who do digs. Luckily, I hadn't run across those, but I have read reviews of people who dig at other authors.
Well, someone read my first book and said it sounded to them like more like a Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah, I remember one of the interviews you said that, and I thought that was interesting.
and well, I mean, and I admit, reviews, as much as I want to divorce myself from what I write and say, well, when somebody says something negative about it, it's not a reflection on me. It's not some sort of statement on my or validation of my worth as a human being. But I still have that ownership, and it's very hard to divorce from that. So yeah, but I also pay attention too. But when a white guy tells me that he can't understand for the life of him why blacks would move to the moon to get away from white folks, it just doesn't make any sense to him. At first I was like, but I didn't say anything. I almost wrote something, but then I said, but that's perfect. That's just perfect, because really, what better comment, illustrates the dichotomy between how whites and blacks view this country. So then I quit being mad.
Okay, well, that's good, because I would have viewed it as that's his damage. That's his damage, not mine. I need to move forward.
Yeah. Okay, so right now, I'm sorry, you've got how many volumes out right now that are available for people to check out?
Total, there are 10 books. Actually, there's 11, going to be 12. One is Patricia Williams, again, Beneath Cat's Eye. The other one is Four Corners. Right. And then there are my books. There's 3 books in the Great Travelers trilogy. And then there's the trilogy itself, all 3 books put together. There's my Karen Bouchard series, the United Nations agent, Bouchard. The first one, Action, is a do-over of Landfill, the one I attempted to publish in '88.
Okay.
So I want to kind of update a little. It reads kind of 90-ish. And then the second book in that series is Rage. Kind of a 4 horsemen trampling on humanity scenario kind of thing.
Okay.
This is when bath salts were in the news. People were going to resort.
Yeah. People's right.
Okay, so that's what this thing kind of centers around. And there's the Blessed Land, Egypt, the alternate history. Imagine Egypt, ancient Egypt, never disappeared, and there were a turn of events where the Romans were defeated or never existed. Certain wars never happened, and Egypt was the dominating force of the world and took up maybe a good third to the third of the world, and then you had and because of what Egypt did by conquering lands, the Spanish or so were not able to go across seas because they were conquered by by the Egyptians. So Maya, I actually have the Maya second book in that series is going to be coming out soon. It's called Blessed Lands Maya, and I'm going to have this whole thing of this alternate history. And there's a conflict between Maya, cursed lands, and Egypt. So that's the alternate history. I just finished a book called Enemy Me. It deals with the self. What makes a person a person? And it has some cloning involved, and I'd have a twist with the cloning. But here you are as
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
I'm not. But here you are. Well, when you read the first half, when you read the first chapter, you get all that.
Right.
The sample chapter.
Right.
But it's just about an individual. What makes you, you, and of course there's other stuff. But I won't give that away. It's a fast read.
Cool.
It's a very fast read.
Now you started your own publishing company.
Oh, I got some information about that.
Yeah, I'm interested in what was your main impetus? Was it to publish your own stuff, or you really wanted to get into the business of being a publisher of many different kinds of works for many different kinds of sources? Which kind of pushed you forward, or was it both?
It was both. I wanted to publish my own stuff, and being a self-published author is good, but there are things you can't do. It takes a company or publishing house who to do certain things. Good example, Barnes & Noble. If you want your book, small press, so if you want your book carried by Barnes & Noble, there are actually other ways now, but if you wanted for them to actually order your books, you have to be small press. And so I created the Mythical Legends, which is the name I use for the 3D content. I did a lot of research. It takes a lot to become a small press, and to do it right. Anybody can be a small press, and they can print some books out. But there are a lot of things you do have to do. Copyrights. You have to have a login at the Copyright Office so you can file it correctly. Pay the small fee to require for that. There's the ISBNs. Amazon has actually a good deal. I was listening to one of the other shows about that. I can say that thing later about the ISBN. They have a great deal for authors, self-publishing, and small press. So I have this body of work, and I have friends who are also authors, and I always wanted them, to be published too, because a few of them tried. They send their books out to these main houses, and they're rejected. Everybody gets rejected. 500,000 books are out every year. I mean,
right.
it's just ridiculous amount, and there's a small percentage of people who actually get published, and sometimes you need an agent, or you need a lucky break. So I said, all right, I'll become a small press. I'll invite all my friends, who write, and I'll publish their books too. And so started out with me, and then I said, well, now that my friends, I'm starting to publish my friends' books, why not I start publishing other people? Because there's a lot of people out there who have some great books, and so they don't have to go through the landmine field that I went through, and I just make it easy. You write your story or your book, I'll take care of everything. Not a dime is coming out of your pocket.
Now, so if somebody's interested in you publishing their books, where's the best place for them to contact you for further information and, the particulars that you all would have to talk about in order to undertake that kind of relationship?
Right. Well, there's the Mythical Legends website. If you click on submissions, it gives you detail.
Yeah, it's right on the very front. Okay, good.
Now, for folks who are listening to this, if you put that you listen to the podcast, just send me the manuscript under publisher at mythicallegends.com. Give me some brief information about yourself, bio, a synopsis of the story. Again, follow because in the submission guideline, we want just a few chapters. We want a few chapters. But in this one, in this case, you can send me the whole manuscript. But you got to be an honest author, because I'm going to read that thing, and I read all the books. I myself will read the book numerous times, 3, 4, 5 times. And
right.
If you're not honest, then that what makes you think I'm going to like it if I have to read it a half dozen times. But as long as you like it, I'll like it. There's a good chance I will. So they can do that, and then again we work out the particulars. There is a contract involved. There's royalty. I paid out a royalty to Ken a couple of weeks ago. He got his first royalty check. Kind of small, he can go to McDonald's and have lunch. But there's that marketing. You have to do marketing.
Yeah, that's twice as big as most of my checks. Okay, so let me ask you this: have you ever turned down a book?
No, we're not getting a whole lot of submissions. I mean, that's the thing. We're not getting a whole lot of submissions. Well, I need to grow.
Yeah, how long have you been doing this? I mean, that's the other question. If you haven't been doing this for a very long time, you probably don't have a, your name's not out there to the extent where people are, beating down your door to get stuff done. I have found the one thing, and I love doing this to agents, especially agents who don't have any interest in talking with me about maybe representing me because they don't do sci-fi, they don't do this, they don't like black folks, they whatever their excuse is. And I tell them, they say, well, why don't you have an agent? I said, well, I got caught with that catch-22 in the publishing business. And they look at me like with this blank stare, and I go, yes, the fact that the only way you can get a publishing company is to have an agent, and the only way you can get an agent is to have already published. And they get damned indignant. They get angry. That's not true. It's not like that. And I go, then why haven't you, then why don't you take me on? And they go, well, we don't do your kind of book. And I go, okay, fine. But I mean, it is true, and a lot of people don't realize that. You know, for those who are listening who are thinking about writing, you know, don't think you can just send your book off to a publishing company, because they're going to return it to you. You're going to return your manuscript unopened, because publishing companies don't talk to authors anymore. Because authors, frankly, authors are crazy. Authors don't have the sense of a houseplant. You know, here in Chicago, I say this all the time, but, you know, every black author I knew, you know, over the past 10 years said, oh, man, I'm gonna get ahead. It's going to be easy. I'm just going to give my book to Oprah, and she'll have me on her show and in her book club, and then I'm off.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, yeah. And you know, the big surprise to them is when I tell them that it was a 28-year-old white lady who was reading all them books for Oprah.
Right.
Going, which is, yeah, Oprah hasn't read a damn book in her entire thing.
Right. Which is funny, because I sent Grid Traveler to Oprah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent the series. Not a word. But I moved on.
Yeah. Did you even get an answer? Did you even get a card? Anything? Yeah, exactly.
No. I sent some books to Queen Latifah, Will Smith. Who else? A bunch of reviewers. Well, that's one of the things about coming on to a small press or publisher, because you have a publisher who will be willing to spend the money to send the material out to these people and try and, you know, someone's going to bite eventually. But I'm just, you know, I'm going to continue doing it. I should say that if you don't want to sign on as, you know, with a small publisher, if anyone's interested, I'll help them become a small press themselves. Or, you know, again, we can be an indie publisher, and there are some things you should do, some things you shouldn't do. Particularly when you're going through a printer. There are a lot of different printers out there, and luckily,
just a fulfillment house or whatever. Yeah.
Well, there's the top two, well now top three is CreateSpace, Amazon, Lightning Source, from the Ingram Group, and Baker and Taylor. And Lightning Source is actually easy to get on with them, but the thing you got to remember is it does cost money. That when you send up your manuscript for the printing format, once you finally get it corrected and it's ready for printing, there's money that you have to put out. It costs $75 for them to take on the book to print, and then there's a $12 annual fee, and then if you want it to appear in a catalog, that's another $60 you got to put out, and this is per book, and you have to pay the $12 every year for every book you have up there. So if you have eventually 100 books, multiply that by 12.
It can be pricey.
It can be pricey.
Yeah, I use a fulfillment house. I use Ex Libris, and a lot of people complain about Ex Libris. They go, oh, well, they didn't do this, and they didn't do that, and I expected, and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? You know, when I dissected all of their complaints, I found, well, unfortunately, you just had unreasonable expectations, or you didn't read. You know, that's the other thing. People don't read their contracts. People don't pay attention to the things that really matter in terms of the business of doing business. And for me, I'll tell you, the last thing I want to do is have a basement full of books, and then when one person goes and buys a book, I have to go downstairs, wrap up a book, send it out, make sure that they paid in real money and all that. I don't want to do that. So that's the value of using a second party.
Oh,
That, be aware that, you know, that second party costs money. It costs money for them to do all of those services. Yeah, exactly.
Pay for shipping. Now, with Lightning Source, because they have a great reach, you know, for all these different outlets and retail, any of those who inquire about the book at Lightning Source, they pay for shipping. And and of course, you have to give them a discount. The industrial standard is 47 to 50%. Of the retail price. Well, actually, it's the printing price, the cost. So my profit and margin is very thin, you know, with some of these books. But one good thing is now if I can log in and I can do single person order. I just sent the book to the UK. A person want a Goodreads giveaway. So instead of printing some books, having shipped to me, and then me repackaging it up, I just logged into Lightning Source and said, UK. And it was cheaper than it would have cost me to do it for the Postal Service because Lightning Source has plants in the UK, and they printed it there, and they shipped it to the person.
Right. So now that you are a publisher, you're also a content creator yourself.
Yeah.
You have a daughter who means the absolute world to you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you kind of parse your day. You know, how much time do you spend in the service of doing business? How much time do you, are you able to spend with your family? You know, because doing a business, and especially doing what you're doing, is really more than a full-time job, because you're doing unless you've got a crew, unless you've got a staff, you're doing all the work yourself. So how do you balance all of that? Is it really hard? Do you have a system down? Tell us a little bit about that so people can kind of understand better how you're managing the process.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll take it from after when I get off of work. I do my 1 hour drive home.
Right.
If it's between Monday, actually Wednesday to Friday, I have to go pick up my daughter because again, my significant other, when she works her job, she stays out there in Woodland Hills. So she's home maybe 2 days out of the week. So I pick up my daughter, chat with my mom, then come home. No, she's already been fed. I don't have to worry about that. And she loves Minecraft. So what I'll let her do is she gets on. She has her own computer, her own laptop, and then she'll go to YouTube and she'll look up all the videos on people playing Minecraft and other games, and then she'll look at that. I'll sit down at the computer. I'll go through the mail, email, news, Facebook, biggest distractor in the world. Hate Facebook, love Facebook. Check out all the sales from the different sites because we're on Smashwords, Kobo, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. So I'll check them to see if there are any sales. Go through that, maybe take a look at the chat room on Amazon. Amazon has some decent chat rooms. And I have the story in front of me. So then I'll stare at it for a bit. Headsets on, music, and then I have the other screen up. I'll maybe put up, maybe I'll either do some research. I have two computers. One is Linux, and it's on my right side. I'll do surfing on that one. And then my main system has the two big monitors. So the center one is the writing. The left one could be the 3D content. And again, I may just do some stuff just to do a new cover. I mean, I got a new commercial idea for Beneath Cat's Eye.
Right.
It's almost like the last commercial I did, where you see our hero John Blakemore, where his hands are glowing, which I got the idea off of Facebook promo for Constantine. So I just wanted to see if I could duplicate that. So I said, okay. So I duplicated it, So I'm going to do something like that for her commercial. And I'm still thinking, and so time is ticking. So I check in on my daughter, make sure she's okay, water, snack, whatever. Then we go through a routine. Okay, now it's time to go to transfer from your room, to your computer. Now get into the bed because we're winding down. So then I'll hand her the Kindle. Kindle has some great stuff for kids. But what she likes to do is look at a couple of cartoons, Rugrats. Maybe listen to some music, which is strange because she loves Black Bottom Girl. It's a 1920 piece. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. So she's interesting. So she'll do that. And then, we'll spend a little time before she actually goes to bed. I give her half an hour on that one. Then she goes to bed. Then I'm able to relax in front of the computer. Because when I'm sitting there and she's doing her thing, I can't completely relax because just in case something happens.
Sure.
Okay, so now she's in bed. I still have to wait until she actually falls asleep. Sometimes it takes about half an hour if she's not exhausted. Then I'd start doing the writing, at least attempting to do the writing. If I can't write, then I'll do some research. And I'll do some notes because I have lots of story ideas. So now it's ticking on to about 10, 11 o'clock. All right. Now I'm thinking, okay, let me write something. So I write my little thing, go to bed. I wake up, and the computer could be 3 o'clock, could be 4 o'clock, sometimes 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock is a little late for me. I sit down. Again, I check the mail, and I go through my routine. check the mail, check the sales reports, get some ideas. If I had a dream, Blessed Lands was a dream. It started out as a dream. Most of my books start off as dreams, or segments. And I just remember it and I write it down. So then, so about 3 o'clock. So I'm sitting there and I go through my routine again, checking the sales reports, looking for reviewers. I'm going through now a list of reviewers who I'm going to query and then send PDFs or books to, and hopefully they'll like it and they'll review it. It takes a long time for a reviewer to actually review a book. Sometimes a month, sometimes 2 months. It took Sandy 6 months to review Grid Traveler, and the only reason why she reviewed Grid Traveler because she said she felt guilty. It was a printed copy. I sent her a printed copy, and she didn't want to do it, and then she read it, and of course, she liked it enough to give me a decent review. Try and do some more writing.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. And then come 6:30, 7 o'clock, I have to get ready for work, and then I have to get my daughter ready for school. Get her up, get her washed up, get her clothes on, give her breakfast. By the time that happens, it's about 7:30, 7:45. I have to get her there before 8:15. Luckily, we're walking distance, but pop her in a car, drop her off, because the school, the school now doesn't allow parents onto the campus. To actually go to the campus, you have to go to the office. So I wave my goodbye, get to my car, head to work where I'm in traffic again for another hour. While I'm listening to KCRW or NPR News, Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but it sounds. It's like every day you have a routine, and part of that routine is managing the entire process.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking in the chat room, how do you go and get reviews for your books? And I would imagine also, what's your success rate?
That's a good question. I think I had a website here, because as I'm talking to you, I'm actually pacing and walking around. I love wireless headsets.
Oh, I went down the street to the Italian place and got a piece of pie while we've been doing the. No, I'm just kidding. But you're right. There's a lot of freedom to being able to do this, and you not having to sit with a headset in the same room that I'm in. The technology is pretty cool.
Oh, it is. But about the reviewers, success rate, not good, because a lot of reviewers, bloggers, there's the Indie Review website that has hundreds. I actually start from the bottom. From the last letter Z and work my way up, because I figured people will start at A, and then it'll go that way. And the people in the beginning of the list, they are inundated by tons and tons of review requests. And so when you go to the review site, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have too many books to read, so I'm not accepting any books at the moment." Sometimes it takes 6 months or a year before they say, "Okay, we're open again." And I just go through the list. Find people, and I go on a website, do my little submission, and send it off. Some people will reply immediately, some don't. The ones that reply immediately are good. I send them whatever they request, PDF, or maybe a hard copy book. And then there's the wait. But while I'm waiting, I move on to find more reviewers. Now for newspapers, like New York Times, LA Times, Sacramento Bee, those like that, NPR, take your books, if you have some money, print out your books, type up a for-your review consideration,
right,
and send it to them. If they pick it up, they pick it up. I had one newspaper who, when I first published Grid Traveler, it was the first edition, and had some errors. We went back and corrected it. She was nice enough that the person in charge of the book reviews sent me an email and said there was an error on the back of the book cover. And we talked, and I said, "Oh, it's a short run," and then she told me about her experience with the printed word, because they used to do hard copy print, and it was terrible. But it was nice enough. It was nice of her to actually tell me about that, and I knew that some of these people, they do catalog the books. They get it, they log it in, and then they wait for a reviewer to pick it up. I'm still waiting for NPR News. But I say that that don't be afraid to send your books out to news organizations who review books.
Right.
You know, I was all hung up on the procedure to do it, the right way to do it. In most cases, screw the right way to do it, because they have their process. But by you sending your books in to them, that's probably part of the process, and they'll accept it anyway. It was LA Times was the only one who actually sent me a book back unopened, and the person wasn't there.
Yeah.
I said, no, that's fine. That's fine. So there's the web searches, there's sending the books out, and then also Goodreads. If you do some giveaways, now Goodreads says 40 to 60% of the people who read your book for a book giveaway would do a review. And I only had 10%.
Well, who is Goodreads owned by?
Amazon.
There you go. I think that answers.
Well, even before that, but it's the people, because you're sending books to individuals who are members. They're not employees of Amazon.
No, I know, but okay. Let me lay some cards on the table, because I don't often talk about this myself. But you know what? If you send your book to a writer, and a couple times I've been guilty of this myself. If you send your work to a writer is likely not to read your book. They may get partway through it, because writers have their own gig. Okay? Writers are driven to get their stuff done. Okay?
Oh,
and sometimes you don't have most. No, let's
yeah.
say the good ones. No, let's say the good ones. Yeah, somebody had to say it. I'll say it.
Well, the thing on Goodreads is there are more readers than there are writers.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you catch a break on Goodreads and the interest in your book reaches a certain threshold, you're going to get people to read it. I mean, people will read it.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing. But as far as and remember, Goodreads is a small community. Goodreads is by no means representative of the larger reading, reviewing community out there. So, every little bit helps.
Right.
And I believe you're right about that. Every little bit helps.
Every
a little bit here, a reader there, a review here, a review there. They all work. But the problem is a lot of authors are not patient, and also they're not well conversant with exactly how things happen. And if one were to be honest, I mean, I would never be that honest, but if one were going to be honest, one would have to say that authors are desperate souls. I would never say that. but I've heard authors are desperate souls, and that desperation to be noticed, to be acknowledged, to find validation for work and worth, that's an uphill climb. That's a tough road to hoe. And sometimes it takes time. I mean, we all know hundreds of authors who were discovered and were lauded, and a big deal was made out of their work after they died. Sometimes that's the luck of the draw.
Well, yeah,
so
but that was then.
But there's no silver bullet. There used to be a way. Okay, you send it to the top 50 reviewers in the country, LA Times, New York Times, Tribune, what have you.
Oh, but you should also get the smaller ones too.
Well, no. I'm just saying, but in the old day, eventually somebody would read it. Especially, but it's different today. It's harder. It's much harder. And I think a lot of writers get discouraged. And if you're writing to get rich quick, it's probably not going to happen.
Oh, right now you're
considered. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say you're in it for the long race. This is not a quick thing. Oh, and I just walked up to my desk, and yes, I do send books to libraries. And it's a short story on that one. I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
So I finished my Enemy Me, and I have the proof copy at home. And my wife is home on this particular day, and she has a friend over. Her son, woman's son, and Nikki are in the same class. So my wife says, "Oh, well, let me hand you one of his books." let me hand you some of his books. So she gives this woman my proof copy of Animi. And then she reaches in, and then she reaches in and pulls out Grid Traveler. And she hands the book. She hands the book over to the woman. And the woman says, "Oh, I have that." And my wife says, "What you do? How'd you get it?" And she said, "Oh, the library." I borrowed that book from, and I had sent, in this case, Inglewood Library a couple of copies. So I send out to libraries. I also send out to science fiction and fantasy clubs, local and afar. So that's where it gets a little expensive.
Yeah, I'm cheating. I'm doing it a different way.
Oh.
I'm taking out a full page ad in the New York Times book section. It's going to be incredibly expensive. It's going to cost as much as a car. But by virtue of paying that amount, I will get more than that back in sales, because you know how people consider the New York Times book section. If they see it there, it's something that they're going to buy. To me,
but for the rest of us who have a shoestring budget,
dude, I'm gonna have to rob a whole bunch of people in the middle of the night on Michigan Avenue to get this money. I'm not gonna lie about it. But I looked at their ad rates for $18,000. For $18,000, and God knows where I'm going to get that money. It's a goal. I set a goal for myself. For $18,000, I get either a half page or a full page ad, depending upon where they are in terms of filling up the book section on that. A couple consecutive, two or four consecutive Sundays. For $18,000, I'll sell 20,000 books. Okay, selling the $20,000 books, 20,000 books means I get my money back, which is very important, because who knows how I'm going to get that $18,000. If I have to, borrow it from the mob, I damn well better get it back, because they don't
almost
play.
Like sending it to Oprah.
but the fact of the matter is, there is no quicker way of getting buzz. And I'm going to be bold. I'm going to get people pissed at me, because I'm going to say, forget Star Wars, forget Star Trek. The Dark Side trilogy is the saga for the new millennium. Well, you're going to get two kinds of people who buy. You're going to get the people who are going to look at it and go, "Oh, it's in the New York Times book section,
ad section,
blah blah blah." And they're going to buy it out of curiosity. But the group that I'm looking forward to having buy it are those people who want to buy the book and rip me a new one, because they're going, the fanboys for Star Trek and Star Wars, because they're going to buy it so that they can, because they're angry. But either way, not only do I get the sales, but my name gets out there in one fell swoop in a way that Goodreads could never do for me. And
doing it that way, it's an expensive way to get your name out there. And, of course, there's always the chance that no one buys your book, or you may get a few sales. Because
not a chance. Not a chance.
Yeah,
Not a chance.
But
Come
you have to be you have to be you have to be
black
prepared.
Folks living on the back of the moon.
Right.
Anyway,
they may make
you're
it.
You're right. There is
a
chance. You're right. There is a chance, and it's an expensive gamble.
But now, are you willing to? Well, if you do that, are you willing also to consider ads in other newspapers, local papers? It won't cost you $18,000, but it may cost you $100, it may cost you $200. And there are a lot of science fiction websites that have like 40, 50, 60, 100,000 hits every month. And doing a banner ad will only cost you about $200.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of ways to do it. But I'm a minimalist. Okay, that doesn't explain it. I'm an over and underachiever at the same time. I will do most everything very, very well, but I will put in the least amount of effort to do so.
That's a mini max theorem.
So I don't know. I got to think about this, because I ain't got $18,000. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making. Well, with all the coin I make with this radio show, eventually I'll have it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and starting small, a couple of weekends ago, my mom and I were doing this yard sale from Inglewood. They do it every 6 months. And I had my first editions of some of my books. So
like a neighborhood yard sale?
Yeah.
It's like where you all go and it's a collective. It's like a
Absolutely. Yeah,
Like
collective, and it's huge, like
okay,
150
all right. Yeah, yeah,
vendors. It was big.
Cool.
So these people are coming down, we're making a little bit of money, and we had some games out, so people are buying the games, and I walk up to them and say, well, do you like to read? And if they say yes, I'll go, oh, okay. What kind of books do you like to read? So I'm engaging them in this conversation. And I said, well, I actually have some books that if you want, I'll give you a copy. And then once I do that, of course, sir, they buy something, and then I give away a couple of books. Now, in one case, the woman worked for the juvenile department, and she said the kids just love to read. They don't get enough. So I said, well, let me load you up with some more books, because these are first editions anyway. And I told her, they have errors in there. So for me to actually sell the first editions hard copy, So it was easy for me to give it away. And the woman said, oh. And I told her that I gave her my business card, small, Mythical Legends. And she said, oh, maybe I can leave you a review. I said, well, yes, you can. So I'm spreading it that way. Again, another opportunity for folks who are wondering how else I can do it for reviews. That's one.
Well, I think also the good thing that you're doing, getting your work into libraries, is good, because that's always great. Do you do any community? Yeah. Do you do any community outreach? Maybe helping your local area youth. Do you do anything like that yet, or is that on your horizon?
Well, once Nikki gets older, but remember my schedule? I have how many hours left to myself?
Well, that is true. That is true.
And on the weekends, I do. Of course, I spend a lot more time doing more of the research and more writing. But I also spend time with my daughter, because we were taking music lessons together. She's learning how to play the piano and the recorder, and I'm learning how to play the flute. So that's one of the things. I used to play trumpet in high school. Remember that overachiever thing? I wanted to be popular, so I did all these bands. So I'm learning how to play the flute. But again, I talk to people in a situation. Oh, are you a reader? You like to read? Oh, yes, I do. Let me give you my business card. Check out the site. Yeah. So you always have to be on.
And it's tough, it's like we said earlier, it's tough finding the time. I mean, like, it's an overtime job to promote to do self-promotion. And then for you, having taken on the task of publisher, the business task of publisher, and I asked, only because, a lot of people I know who are authors, they attend conventions.
We're doing that next year.
They go do things like that. You will? Okay. So there's a little bit of your outreach right there. Even though, today, when you got home today, or when you get home today, you got your routine. You have to do this, you have to do that. You have to do things in the service of being a business. At least you're looking forward to the time when you can get out more.
Right. Yeah, and it's also a thing in numbers. The more books you have, the more books that you write, people are going to stumble upon. They may stumble upon one book, but they're going to see the others. They came in for one book. Oh, this person has. Oh, wow, they have a lot of books. Or again, a small press. They go to Mythical Legends. Oh, there's 10 books. Hopefully, it'll be 100. Eventually, 1,000. That's my goal. Is to be a powerhouse. But the more books you have, even by different authors, and again, they go in, they look for one author, and they go, well, let me check out this other stuff. Oh, this group has more authors. Let me see what they've written. Let me read their chapter, and then boom, hopefully you get a sale or you get a bookmark. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to cut you off or anything, but
I know, because we have to.
No. We're getting close to the end of the evening. Plus, Jarvis has a few announcements that he wants to get out of the way in a couple minutes. But if you had just sum it up in a minute or two, if you had a message, if you had one piece of advice that you wanted to put out there for people, not only other content creators, but people who may want to think about looking to you and your firm to help them get their first book out there, to do their publishing, what would your advice be at this point?
The advice would be, besides, again, give me an honest book. Give me a book that you actually honestly like. Prepare for the long haul, because you as an author are going to have to do some work yourself. You're going to have to do some outreach. You're standing in line with a person. Oh, I happen to have a book. So with us, you come on with us, send me a book. I like the book. We publish it. Expect to do some work. You should get on some social media. Social media is good. It's not the holy grail or the silver bullet. You're not going to go to Facebook, post a little message that says I wrote a book, and then millions of people will buy it. No, but it's you can get the word out. You can spread the word out.
Sure.
Consider doing maybe some ads yourself. Goodreads you can spend $20, and then you can have a little ad of your book, pop up on the screen, and people do click on it. People click on it, because Goodreads will tell you how many people clicked on it. You do the same thing with Amazon. Amazon will allow you to push content for pretty, dirt cheap. I did some advertisements for about 2 cents a click, for a book. It doesn't cost much. You set your limit. You set a daily limit. So again, expect to put in some of your own time. Continue writing after you've written the first book. Always moving forward. Always thinking about your next story. And engage yourself in people. If you're a shy individual, okay, do it over, social media. If you're an extroverted individual, go out there and start shaking hands and kissing babies. It's just but put you as an author, you do have to put in the time yourself. Even the authors who made it big, they still have to go to book signings. They still have to go to these events.
And there's some basic fundamentals that people who have not been an author or who are very new to it, they have to learn to do. Like you have to have your elevator pitch. You have to have a business card. You have to have. There are some business fundamentals that, not everybody automatically knows. And I would imagine that you guys are about the business of helping people to learn how to do those sorts of things.
Oh yeah,
because in the final analysis, we are our own best salesperson.
Yeah, and I'm always listening to ideas. You got an idea about something? Let's go ahead and give it a try. It's not what's it going to hurt. What's going to hurt? No,
that's true. That's true. Well, look, after the recording's over, hang around for a few minutes. We'll have a short conversation. It's kind of like our added extras to get people to actually come to the show when it's live. They get to hear all the behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe a filthy joke or two if I'm in the mood. But hang on for a second. I want to thank everybody for listening in, those of you who listen live and those of you who pick up the podcast afterwards. And remind everybody, remind your friends, try to get them to listen. We're on every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's available all around the clock. We even have people who tune in from the African continent. So, I'm always gratified when I see people who are listening live, and especially I like those who, if they do miss the show, they go back and check it out. So thank you all for listening. For those of you who are frequent visitors to the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website, all of the usual suspects are there nearly all the time, or at least sometime during the day. Stop in and see us. And our fearless leader, Jarvis, has a few announcements he wants to make. And so take it away, Jarvis.
Awesome. Thanks, William. I want to thank James for coming on. That was some wonderful information that everybody could benefit from that you shared with us today. And I found out a little bit about your background that I had no idea about. So it was some real cool stuff. Also, thanks goes out to William for always pulling it through, making the show entertaining and enjoyable. And also all of the members that have supported us with this project. Everything that you've done, from sharing the information to coming on the website every day, is greatly appreciated. And we want to also encourage everyone to get active on the site by posting your information, posting events that are going on in your area, and just comment on other people's posts. So thank you for all your support. And also I want to say say happy Halloween to everybody tonight. And lastly, we have a short film by H. Wolfgang Porter that I'm about to post the link up to tonight. Tonight was the debut of it. I've seen it already, and I can tell you it had me cringing at certain points in there. And if you can get me to cringe, then you really have pulled something off. So I'm gonna post that in here now, and I'm also gonna post it over on the main site. But I want to thank everybody for participating and making this a success.
Well, thank you very much, and
thank you. Thank you for letting me do this.
Yeah, James. No, it was great. And then keep us posted. Like Jarvis said, post up any appearances you're going to make. If you're going to show up at any conventions, things like that, do put it on the BSFS events calendar so that people can, check you out in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got a lot of people, a lot of members in the Southern California area, and even, I'm going to Florida in a little while. I'm going to different places. I'm going to check out the calendar to see if there are things going on anywhere near my destinations where I might meet up with BSFS people. So I want to thank you for being on the show. Thanks for making this an easy job for me tonight. And you have great stories. You have an interesting life, and it sounds like you're managing everything really, really well. So thanks for coming, and I want to wish everybody else a happy Halloween. I just want to tell everybody I've actually been sitting here in my costume. I went out earlier trick-or-treating, which is why I was a little late coming in. I'm wearing my everyday clothes because I'm dressed as a serial killer, and they look like all of us. They look like everybody else. So it was an easy costume to put together, but the serial killer part was a little hard to carry off. Mm-hmm. So on behalf of Jarvis and everybody else who belongs to the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com family, I want to wish everybody a good rest of your Halloween, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
So thank you, and good night.
Good night.
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 And good night.
Good night.